That's why we're wanting to vote. That was basically a song that is from 2 centuries ago. It was written in 1884, lyrics by L. May Wheeler. My name is Sharleen Leahey, and I am a singer-songwriter and recording artist. And since the COVID pandemic, I've become a Zoom concert producer. And I'm so happy to be here. It's such a joy to be at this beautiful, beautiful gallery with these wonderful women. And I'd like to introduce my singing partner. We are the Herstorians, by the way, and I am honored to be performing here with Pat Lamanna.
Thank you, sure. Yes, I am Pat Lamanna. I live in Hyde Park, and so I'm a local singer-songwriter and also doing a lot of stuff on Zoom. Also an active member, by the way, of the Hudson Valley Folk Guild, which those of you who are local, go to hudsonvalleyfolkguild.org. We have started Zooming all of our coffee houses the first 3 Saturdays of the month, so look into that. Now, we are here, of course, today to talk about women's suffrage. Much of what we're about to read to you today is taken from the liner notes written by Erwin Silber from a 1958 Folkways record called Songs of the Suffragettes. We've adapted and excerpted those notes.
The right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied nor abridged by the United States nor by any other state on account of sex. With those few simple words, American women gain the right to vote. Won the right to vote. Today, when we are still fighting for the right of everyone to vote and to have their vote counted, we could do well to remember how the issue of women's suffrage racked this nation from coast to coast. Riots, demonstrations, outraged sermons, indignant editorials, and emotional outbursts from all sides. Sound familiar? Highlight the history of the long uphill fight for women's electoral rights, which was capped by triumph with the adoption of the 19th Amendment on August 26, 1920. The struggle for women's suffrage in America is actually older than our country. The first recorded demand for votes for women was made by Margaret Brent in Maryland in 1647. For the next 200 years, however, women's suffrage remained a minor issue as America fought the battle for national independence and then the Civil War.
The next important step forward came with the emergence of the great anti-slavery agitation of the 1830s. The natural ideological affinity of the two causes was heightened by the active and leading role played by many women in the abolitionist movement. Outstanding male figures in the battle against slavery, like William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass, were also ardent champions of women's rights. Another famous abolitionist and suffragist was Sojourner Truth. As you probably know, Sojourner Truth was born into slavery in Ulster County, right across the river from where we are. And by the way, there's a beautiful new statue of her on the Highland side of the walkway that I would recommend everyone to go see. She escaped in 1826, though she knew that slavery would be abolished in New York in 1827. She traveled around the country giving speeches and singing songs about abolition and women's rights. Here is one of the songs attributed to her. I am pleading for my people to have their rights restored, for they have long been toiling and yet have no reward. They are forced the crops to culture, but not for them they yield. Oh no, but late and early they labor in the field, while I bear upon my body the scars of many a gash
next woman we want to honor tonight is a woman who was born on the eastern shores of Maryland, born into slavery. She escaped and returned 19 times and freed over 300 men, women, and children on what was known as the Underground Railroad. The song I'm going to perform for you is called Harriet Tubman. It's written by Walter Robinson. By the way, Harriet was not only the most famous abolitionist, but she was also a suffragist. One night I dreamed I was in slavery, about 1850 was the time. Sorrow was the only sign, nothing around to ease my mind. Out of the night appeared a woman, leading a distant pilgrim band. First minute she cried, pointing her hands, make room no more for this young woman, said, come on up, I got a lifeline, come on up to this train of mine, come on up, I got a lifeline, come on up to this train of mine. She said her name was Harriet Tubman, and she drove for the Underground Railroad. Somehow my heart was growing weaker, fell by the wayside, shifting sands. Firmly did this woman stand. She lifted me up, she lifted me up, she lifted me up, and she took my hand, saying, come on up, I got a lifeline, come on up to this train of mine. Come on up, I got a lifeline, come on up to this train of mine. She said her name was Harriet Tubman, and she drove for the Underground Railroad. Who are these children dressed in red? Must be the ones that Moses led. Who are these children dressed in red? Must be the ones that Moses led. She said her name was Harriet Tubman, and she drove for the Underground Railroad. Railroad. Railroad.
In 1840, Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton were among the American delegates to the First World Anti-Slavery Convention in London. The presence of these women caused an uproar in the assembly, and the convention refused to seat them as delegates. Undaunted, the entire American delegation refused to take part and took seats in the gallery for the remainder of the proceedings. Stirred and agitated by their experiences in London, Mott and Stanton resolved that upon returning home, they would initiate the campaign for women's rights on a wider scale than ever before. In 1848, they called the first American Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York. By 1852, women's rights groups in many parts of the country were holding conventions. Despite this, the monumental struggle against slavery eclipsed the women's rights movement until after the Civil War. Although there were dissenters, most of the suffragists were abolitionists themselves and understood the necessity of winning the anti-slavery battle first. It is significant that the first suffrage songs of which we have any record do not appear until after 1865.
These next words are from Voices of a People's History, edited by the notorious Howard Zinn and Anthony Arnove. In November 1872, Susan B. Anthony was one of 14 women who defied the law to cast a ballot in the presidential election. Anthony was arrested for knowingly voting without having a lawful right to vote. and on June 18, 1873, she was found guilty. The next day, when her lawyer appealed the verdict, she addressed the court in response to a question from the judge, Ward Hunt. I am pleased to announce that on Tuesday, August 18, 2020, our president, Donald J. Trump, finally issued a posthumous pardon to Susan B. Anthony. I know we are all so very grateful to him for recognizing this miscarriage of justice that her conviction represented. Pat and Richard will now reenact that dramatic scene with some redactions for time considerations.
And I'd like to introduce Richard Maddox, who will play the judge. You can take off your mask. Your Honor.
Has the prisoner anything to say why sentence shall not be pronounced?
Yes, Your Honor, I have many things to say. For in your ordered verdict of guilty, you have trampled underfoot every vital principle of our government. My natural rights, my civil rights, my political rights, my judicial rights are all alike ignored. Robbed of the fundamental privilege of citizenship, I am degraded from the status of a citizen to that of a subject. And not only myself individually, but all of my sex are, by your Honor's verdict, doomed to political subjection under this so-called Republican form of government.
The court cannot listen to a rehearsal of the arguments. The prisoner's counsel has already consumed 3 hours in presenting.
May it please your Honor, I am not arguing the question, but simply stating the reasons why sentence cannot, in justice, be pronounced against me. Your denial of my citizens' right to vote is the denial of my right of consent as one of the governed, the denial of my right of representation as one of the taxed, the denial of my right to a trial by jury of one of my peers as an offender against law, therefore the denial of my sacred rights to life, liberty, property.
The court cannot allow the prisoner to go on.
But your Honor will not deny me this one and only poor privilege of protest against this high-handed outrage upon my citizens' rights. May it please the court to remember that since the day of my arrest last November, this is the first time that either myself or any person of my disfranchised class has been allowed a word of defense before judge or jury. All of my prosecutors, from the 8th Ward corner grocery politician who entered the complaint, to the United States Marshal, Commissioner, District Attorney, District Judge, your Honor on the bench, not one is my peer, but each and all are my political sovereigns. And had your Honor submitted my case to the jury, as was clearly your duty, even then I should have had just cause of protest, for not one of those men was my peer, but native or foreign-born, white or black, rich or poor, educated or ignorant, awake or asleep, sober or drunk, each and every man of them was my political superior, hence in no sense my peer. Even my counsel, who has argued my case so ably, so earnestly, so unanswerably before your Honor, is my political sovereign.
The court must insist the prisoner has been tried according to the established forms of law.
Yes, your Honor, but by forms of law all made by men, interpreted by men, administered by men, in favor of men, and against women. Hence, your Honor's ordered verdict of guilty against a United States citizen for the exercise of that citizen's right to vote, simply because that citizen was a woman and not a man. But a few short years ago, the same man-made forms of law declared it a crime to give a cup of cold water, a crust of bread, or a night's shelter to a panting fugitive as he was tracking his way to Canada. And every man or woman in whose veins coursed a drop of human sympathy violated that wicked law, reckless of consequences, and was justified in so doing. As then, the slaves who got their freedom must take it over or under or through the unjust forms of law, precisely so now must women, to get their right to a voice in this government, take it. And I have taken mine, and mean to do so at every possible opportunity.
As Susan B. Anthony points out, if women could be forced to pay taxes and obey laws, they were certainly entitled to have some say in electing the public officials who decided to impose those taxes and pass those laws. The next song is called The Taxation Tyranny. Votes for women became one of the major national issues of the 1900 to 1920 period. This is the era of the women's parades, of the torchlight demonstrations, of the suffragists chaining themselves to lampposts. Suffragists who in many cases rightly associated spousal abuse with alcohol abuse, who believed that to free women from abusive husbands, all that was needed was to prohibit the manufacture and sale of alcoholic beverages. This song lauds women for going to the polls to put down the liquor traffic.
By the way, you may have noticed that all of these songs are to well-known tunes. As today, we still are writing songs that are parodies of well-known songs. They did it in the olden days too. Now I would like to invite Richard Maddox, our token male, back to help me with this next song. This was one of the most popular of the suffrage songs. It appears in a number of suffrage song collections and was widely sung at rallies.
Drink and starved his wife and
On June 4th, 1919, Congress passed the Women's Suffrage Amendment and sent it to the states for ratification. The amendment became part of the Constitution on August 26, 1920, and the vision of those first suffragists, so many years before, over 7 decades before, who gathered together in Seneca Falls in 1848, at last was a reality. Here's another rousing song that the suffragists sang to the tune of Marching Through Georgia. It's called Give the Ballot to the Mothers. Let's talk about it. This is the banner that Alice Paul carried to celebrate the victory of the passage of the 19th Amendment. The banner has 36 states, 36 stars, one for each state of the Union that ratified the Constitution, the Constitutional Amendment. And it was a long, long struggle, and I wrote a song about that struggle. And it all started with a visit to Seneca Falls, the landmark of the site of the first Women's Rights Convention in 1998, which was the 150th anniversary of that momentous occasion. And when I got to reflect upon that experience, I said, well, why didn't I ever know this? As a woman who went through many years of schooling, I couldn't understand that. And then I talked to other women, and they hadn't heard the story either. And I thought, my goodness, this is such a dramatic story. So I wrote a song about it, and the song is called The Woman's Suffrage Song. And it begins in London, England, believe it or not, where Elizabeth Cady Stanton was with her husband attending the World Anti-Slavery Convention. Her husband was a dedicated abolitionist. There she met Lucretia Mott, who had been invited from Nantucket, Massachusetts, to speak, because she was a preacher woman. This is a woman who was a leader in her community. When she got to the convention, the leaders of the event told her, you cannot speak, and she was shocked. And they said, because you're a woman, you have to sit upstairs behind the curtain. And that started Elizabeth and Lucretia talking about what can we do to change this situation. Because here we are trying to free the enslaved people of America, and in a sense we're enslaved as well. One night I drew, sorry, that's the wrong song. Lucretia Mott sailed the sea to speak out against slavery. cannot be allowed, said the all-male convention crowd. This is a public place, and a woman can't utter a sound. Their hypocrisy, so absurd as they wrap themselves in freedom's words, holding the chains of male domination. With Elizabeth Stanton at her side, Lucretia vowed to turn the tide, and together they planted the seeds of a revolution. The chilly winds and the darkest nights, they held along like geese in flight, for the sisters' sake, preparing to fight. In a little town near Seneca Falls, in rural upstate New York, Elizabeth and Lucretia calls up a meeting. 5 women in a circle, having tea, yearning for equality. The Women's Rights Convention, they decided they would be meeting. 1848, in the heat of July, women and girls came from far and wide, daring to confront their state of subjugation. Elizabeth Stanton had taken the floor for the right to vote. She did implore, but the hall erupted with protests and confusion. From the back of the hall, Frederick Douglass rose. At the sound of his voice, everybody froze, wrapped in his eloquence and conviction. As a former slave, I beg you not to ignore, suffrage is the right, suffrage is the root of all our law, and without the vote there can be no emancipation. Through chilly winds and the darkest nights, they held on like ice in flight, for the sisters' sake, getting ready to fight. Brave leaders emerged to advance the cause. Truth gave to Alice Paul, hungering in prison to amend the Constitution. After 72 years of struggle and pain, with the 19th Amendment we overcame. In August 1920 we marched in jubilation. But the patriarchy still remains in a constant state of war with all creation. Rising from the seeds of all mothers sowed, millions of women are coming to know that the fate of Mother Earth depends on our mobilization. And through chilly winds and the darkest nights, we'll hold on like peace and fight for our sake. We've got to fight. Through chilly winds and the darkest nights, we'll hold on like peace and fight for Mother Earth. We've got to fight. We gotta fight. We gotta fight. We've gotta fight.
So for our final song, it's to the tune of a well-known song, and it's got verses by myself and Sharleen, and then we're going to end with a verse by the original author of the song, and we probably won't have to tell you who that is or what the song is. You'll figure it out.
Before we do it, I just want to, since we're celebrating today, I want to join Pat. Since I'm from I'm living in New Jersey the past 25 years, and I'm very proud to say that the woman who was the leader of that final push for the suffrage amendment after 72 years of struggle was Alice Paul, proud Jersey girl. So here we go.
All right.
Right.
These are replicas of the actual sashes you've probably all seen in pictures.
By the way, it's interesting that we talked about England because Alice Paul learned her tactics in England with the Pankhursts, great English feminists. So,
This is, a quote by Emmeline Pankhurst right here.
okay. And this is from a song that was actually one of Pete Seeger's favorites.
We usually ask people to sing along, but
Yeah.
maybe if you sing into your masks. And those of you who are home, as long as you're muted, you can sing as loud as you want.
Those of you at home can sing along, yeah, definitely.
Women are leaders, women are voters. We serve in Congress and on the SCOTUS. Someday a woman will be our POTUS. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
Rise up, women. It's time to heal. Mother Earth into the new green deal. Fathers, daughters, sisters, and brothers too. This land was made for me and you. Come on.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Nobody living can ever stop me as I go walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can make me turn back. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
Oh, final words, yes. And then I'll tell you what I was going to tell you. The presentation has a final quotation from Carrie Chapman Catt. The vote is the emblem of your equality, women of America, the guarantee of your liberty. That vote of yours has cost millions of dollars and the lives of thousands of women. Women have suffered agony of soul which you never can comprehend, that you and your daughters might inherit political freedom. That vote has been costly. Prize it. The vote is a power, a weapon of offense and defense, a prayer. Use it intelligently, conscientiously, prayerfully, because progress is calling to you to make no pause. Act. Thank you. And I just wanted to say, to be back in my home state for this great program, I mean, it's just an honor. And I want to just make one comment about New York. For some reason, so many of the activists, we had activists from all over the place in our country and overseas, and there was so much influence from immigrants and so on, and enslaved people and so on. And it's a it's a long story that we're still uncovering, but the role of New York was really strong. And even the last song, that was Pete Seeger's favorite song, Great New Yorker, and Woody Guthrie, who lived in my hometown of Brooklyn, New York, for many years. So I'm just saying, New York, it's just, thank you, New York, for all the great activists that you nurtured. And now there's a statue I'm going to see tomorrow. I'm a tourist here this weekend, and Pat is going to show me the new statue of Sojourner Truth, only a few minutes from here. So that's going to be very exciting.
And I would like to thank Paula and David and Mary and Suprina, who has this beautiful art gallery at 317 Main Street in Poughkeepsie.
So
And has made this beautiful work of art here, the vote sign, but the art gallery is just full of gorgeous paintings, and the theme of the month is women. So thank you all.
I just want to say one final thing, just to illustrate how this story is not that long ago that we did not have the vote. My mother was born in 1913 without the vote. So this story is not, we're only 100 years from this great achievement. And it's really not that long ago at all.
And we all know how easily we can lose it.
That's right. And thank you, Richard, for
Yes.
your wonderful
Yes.
participation. Who says we don't need to know, right?
Yeah.